What happens when two martial artists decide that the lessons of competition are worth more than trophies? Out of real memories, painful defeats, and moments of honor, a new story began to take shape. One that wasn't about violence or revenge, but about the price of discipline and the weight of sacrifice. It was a story that blended the physical intensity of martial arts with the emotional weight of personal struggle, a vision that aimed to stand apart from the typical fight movies of its time. So how did this story transform into a film that still resonates decades later? Let's find out. This is the story of Best of the Best.
I'm here to teach you how to win. Winning isn't a sometime thing.
Back in 1980, Phillip was part of the 5-man US Taekwondo team facing the Republic of Korea. These weren't casual athletes, they were soldiers known as rokas, who trained 6 days a week with a level of discipline that was overwhelming to witness. The matches were brutal, but they carried moments of honor too. One fight ended not with more blows, but with an embrace, a reminder that even in the harshest contests, respect mattered. That sense of dignity would eventually plant the seed for Best of the Best. For Simon, the memories were just as powerful. At only 17, he stepped into the ring in Korea and took a kick that left him breathless and crushed, especially with his grandfather watching, a man who had lived through the country's independence struggle. Around him, he saw fighters tearing off bandages, bowing to generals, and forcing themselves back into the ring despite injuries. The sight left him shaken, but also inspired. It was raw, emotional, and unforgettable. When he returned to the US, he told Phillip they needed to capture that spirit somehow. The two brothers agreed that most martial arts films being released at the time, filled with drugs, sex, and gratuitous violence, weren't representing the values they had grown up with. They wanted to create a story that showed martial arts as they understood it, discipline, heart, and the meaning of honor. The project was financed with the backing of Peter Strauss and Frank Giustra, with Phillip himself producing. When Sony first came calling, they actually wanted to buy Silent Assassin, Phillip's earlier film with Sam Jones and Linda Blair. But that picture had already been sold, and Phillip saw his chance. Instead of giving them what they asked for, he pitched something far more personal. A martial arts drama that placed character, sacrifice, and spirit before spectacle. Sony asked to see a script, Phillip sent the draft, and within a single week the response came back, they were in. At its core, the premise was straightforward. 5 American martial artists are chosen to face the Korean national team in a high-stakes international tournament.
This is the only thing I know I am good at.
From the beginning, Phillip Rhee knew that casting would determine whether Best of the Best stayed another martial arts picture or became something with more weight. Rhee explained that his goal wasn't simply to find martial artists, but great actors who could carry the dramatic core of the story. The first target was James Earl Jones. Rhee understood that if he could secure Jones, whose gravitas was undeniable, it would draw others in. When Jones read the script and responded to its heart, he signed on. Once that anchor was in place, Eric Roberts came aboard to play Alex Grady. Roberts committed himself fully, training hard and reshaping his body to look convincing on screen. His dedication impressed both Rhee and the rest of the cast, showing that he wasn't just another name attached for box office value. Chris Penn joined next as Travis, the hot-headed cowboy with a chip on his shoulder. Penn brought a real edge. His boxing background helped, but his swagger fit the role even more. Early on, Penn wanted to test Phillip, goading him to show off his kicks. Rhee obliged, delivering a spinning back kick so hard it knocked the wind out of him. From that moment, the tension turned into friendship, and Penn became one of his closest allies on set. For the supporting cast, Sally Kirkland was chosen as Catherine Wade, bringing a spiritual counterbalance to Jones's gruff coach. Louise Fletcher added another layer as Alex's mother, while John Dye and David Agresta rounded out the team roster as Virgil Keller and Sonny Grasso. Master Heel Cho played the Korean coach, while James Liu, a veteran martial artist and stunt coordinator, not only helped design the fights, but also appeared as one of the Korean competitors. Each member of the American team was cast to represent a distinct archetype. all reflecting Phillip's vision of clashing personalities learning to become a true team. And then there was the family connection. Phillip not only starred as Tommy Lee, but also cast his brother Simon as Dae Han, the Korean champion. It was not originally the plan to have Simon take the role, but Phillip realized his brother's rhythm, precision, and ability to create beautiful lines and fight choreography would be essential to the film's authenticity. Combined with his emotional depth, Simon brought a level of realism and weight to the finale that no other actor could have delivered. Their climactic showdown became more than just a narrative duel. It was a real family affair, rooted in years of training and understanding each other's rhythm.
Taekwondo.
While Best of the Best was conceived as a martial arts drama, its music carried just as much weight as the action and performances. The score was composed by Paul Gilman, whose dramatic themes underscored the final tournament battles. His work gave the movie a pulse that pushed both the emotion and the adrenaline. The soundtrack leaned heavily into the rock and pop of its era. Golden Earring contributed Radar Love, while Jim Capaldi delivered something so strong and Tales of Power. Stubblefield and Hall performed the title track Best of the Best. Kirsten Nash added American Hotel. Golden Earring also supplied The Devil Made Me Do It. The movie opened on November 10th, 1989. Sony gave it a limited theatrical run and positioned it for the booming VHS market rather than a wide push in theaters. With a reported budget of about $6.5 million, it earned roughly $1.7 million at the US box office, which read as a disappointment on paper. Reviews at the time were largely negative. Roger Ebert criticized it as a familiar climb from despair to victory and called it not merely predictable, but shamelessly so. In later critical tallies, the film sat at a low aggregated score, reflecting how chilly the professional reception was at the start. Audiences responded differently. The limited run gave way to a strong afterlife on VHS, where rentals surged and word of mouth kicked in. Overseas play proved even stronger, and international revenue turned the film into a solid earner beyond its domestic take. Viewers connected to the emotion at the finish, a reaction echoed in interviews where fans and hosts described being caught off guard by how moving it felt.
Enough points for an American team victory.
Bringing Best of the Best to the screen was anything but easy. Phillip Rhee might have been the driving force, but once the cameras rolled, the film demanded just as much sacrifice as the story it told. Director Bob Radler, making his feature debut, pushed for gritty realism. Cameraman Jerry Watson earned more than one black eye from getting kicked while filming fight scenes, a badge of honor for capturing the intensity Radler wanted. Conditions were punishing, especially during the Korean waterfall sequence. Simon Rhee described standing under the icy water as one of the hardest things he had ever done. He admitted he began to cry until Phillip wrapped him in his jacket and hugged him, a moment that bonded the brothers in real life, just as their characters clashed on screen. Radler remembered that the water was about 33 degrees, and when Simon emerged from it, he was in tears from the pain. The medal ceremony brought its own challenge. Simon had to deliver his lines through genuine tears, but after several takes, his emotions dried up. To unlock the moment again, Phillip quietly told the cinematographer to keep filming, then embraced his brother, telling him that he loves him. That single act triggered the emotional release Simon needed, and the camera caught the shot that made it into the final cut. Bruises, hard falls, and the occasional stiff kick were part of the job, but no one complained. During rehearsing one of the training scenes, Master Cho swung a prop baseball bat into Simon's shin. The bat snapped in half and the broken end slammed into his groin, dropping him instantly. As Phillip later said, everyone gave it their all because the film came from the heart. Even techniques created behind the scenes left a mark. Simon pointed out that the Superman punch he used in the movie was one of the first on film, and he later learned that fighters in other movies started copying it after Best of the Best hit screens. And sometimes the hits were a little too real. Phillip admitted that the spinning heel kick his brother landed on him during the climactic fight was not pulled. Simon slapped with the foot instead of striking with the heel for safety, but the kick still connected, and it was a big-time hit. For all its grueling moments, the production carried a spirit of friendship. Phillip insisted that the stunt team deserved equal credit, saying they made everyone else look good and took the hardest knocks. Though critics dismissed it in 1989, Best of the Best has endured for decades, with its reputation and fans only growing with time. In pop culture, the movie has been celebrated far beyond its original release. It was highlighted on Fandango's list of the most inspirational sports films, placed alongside Rocky. ESPN later included it among the 20 best sports dramas of all time, recognition that placed it shoulder to shoulder with far bigger studio productions. The movie also spawned 3 sequels through the 90s. Best of the Best 2 arrived in 1993 with Bob Radler returning as director and Eric Roberts, Phillip and Simon Rhee, and Chris Penn reprising their roles. This time the story shifted to an underground coliseum in Las Vegas, with new additions like Ralph Mahler, Meg Foster, and even Wayne Newton. For Rhee, the concept was to expand beyond Taekwondo and bring in fighters of different styles, essentially creating a no-rules tournament just before the rise of the UFC. As Wayne Newton's character put it in the film, there are no rules. A few months later, the UFC would debut under the exact same idea. Rhee has often pointed out that Best of the Best 2 captured that vision on screen first. The shoot itself lasted about 8 weeks, with 3 of those spent filming inside the Coliseum arena. Rhee emphasized heavy preparation, insisting that extra rehearsal time made the fight scenes smoother once the cameras rolled. Rhee also trained daily to change his physique, wanting to look bigger and stronger without losing the agility of a martial artist. Ralph Mahler, cast as the towering gladiator Brakus, was put through fight training like everyone else. Though he came from a bodybuilding background, he adapted quickly, moving with surprising fluidity for a man his size. His friendship with Arnold Schwarzenegger even led to Arnold dropping by the set, which gave the production an extra spark. The sequel ultimately pulled in around $6 million, flopping in US theaters. Internationally, though, it proved especially popular. Over time, it carved out its own loyal fan base, remembered for its mix of over-the-top spectacle and its place in martial arts cinema as a precursor to the no-rules fighting craze that was about to explode. In 1995, Best of the Best 3 pushed the series into darker, more personal territory. Phillip Rhee insisted he would be the one to steer it. He fought to get the project out of Fox's first refusal window and made one condition clear: if he could get it made, he would star in it, produce it, and direct it. The idea for the story arrived from an image in a magazine about a skinhead murder. Stepping behind the camera for the first time, Rhee balanced his direction between action and drama, aiming to make a film that was urgent and morally clear while still delivering the fight choreography audiences expected. 3 years later, Best of the Best 4 followed. Rhee wrote the script, directed, produced, and starred once more. This time the story shifted toward mobsters and counterfeiting, and brought names like Ernie Hudson and Tobin Bell. Rhee has been frank about the 4th film's place in the series. By that point, the franchise had moved into straight-to-video territory, and the movie was made with an eye toward keeping the brand working on home video. Come on! Following its early life in theaters and on VHS, Best of the Best continued to find new audiences through later formats. The film was also released on Laserdisc, then moved onto DVD as home media evolved. In 2016, a Blu-ray complete collection brought all 4 films together in one set, giving fans a way to revisit the entire series in high quality. Over the years, it has also appeared on streaming services, keeping it accessible for new viewers and longtime fans alike. For fans who want the definitive version, the Blu-ray edition remains the best way to experience Best of the Best today. There's an Amazon link in the description, and a card should be popping up on screen to make it easy to check it out. So, what happens when two martial artists decide that the lessons of competition are worth more than trophies? In the case of Phillip and Simon Rhee, it became a film that outlived its box office numbers and critical reviews. That's why decades later it still lingers, passed down by word of mouth, quoted in pop culture, and carried in the memories of fans who saw themselves in its story of honor and sacrifice. And if Best of the Best showed how a heartfelt story could turn into an enduring cult favorite, what about a film that tried to blend martial arts spectacle with science fiction mayhem? A movie that came with big stars, wild stunts, and an infamous Cannes showdown.
He's not responding.
Could be an old memory.
Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more awesome content.